And joining us now with more on the political situation is Gil Hofman, former political reporter for the Jerusalem Post, and now with Honest Reporting. Gil, let's start with Ben Gvir. He's unhappy with being shut out of the strategic security issues. Likud says Netanyahu's prime minister, and if Ben Gvir doesn't like it, he can leave. How serious is this threat?
The threat is not serious at all, Steve. Until the budget passes, Ben Gvir has accomplished nothing for his constituents. And he can threaten, but he has no ammunition to really carry out any serious step that could harm Netanyahu. Right now, if Netanyahu doesn't want to invite him, there's not really much he can do about it, except stay on the sidelines, go to Sderot, get heckled a little bit, whether initiated by him or not. And meanwhile, the Knesset's not passing anything yet anyway.
Ben Gvir has been seen by some as a liability to the government. Would it be so bad if he were to leave? Does Netanyahu have an alternative?
Ben Gvir has 6 seats, and the coalition has 64. I don't see 3 people leaving Ben Gantz's party to join Netanyahu and save him politically. They would rather go to an election where the polls say Gantz has 28 seats, would bring back some people to the Knesset who did a lot of good work when they were in power for a year and a half. They're not going to save Netanyahu if they don't have to.
Well, the UTJ is now also threatening that if the Haredi draft bill is not passed before the budget is, they're not going to vote for it. Is their threat real?
They're not serious either, Steve. You know, right now it's a time of empty threats. I wish the threats on the military battlefield were also empty. Those are real. United Torah Judaism, the rabbis have not yet finished all their rulings, but it looks like they're all going to rule that they can wait another few months. They've been waiting for years now, and the current situation for them isn't that bad.
Well, Gil, the budget is on the docket, and there are many bills set to go up for votes in the coming weeks. They need all the votes in place. Will the coalition succeed and get the budget passed?
Steve, absolutely. They're going to pass a budget. It's a 2-year budget. That's something that guarantees them a relative amount of stability. That's something that Netanyahu initiated. They don't have 2-year budgets anywhere around the world. Maybe Porush of United Torah Judaism and Almog Cohen of Ben Gvir's party in the show of protest will vote against it. That's still 62, which is enough. And the budget is not what's going to bring this government down. What could bring the government down is if Ben Gvir in another year or so decides that he can show that he's so much more right-wing than Netanyahu and help him politically. When Ben Gvir is down in the polls right now, latest polls show his party wouldn't cross the electoral threshold. This is not the time that he could leave.
And Gil, finally, if I'd like to ask you to change hats to your role at Honest Reporting. We've covered the heartbreaking story of the D family's murder. Why does the international media have such a hard time identifying the killers as terrorists?
So, Steve, what the D family has been through has been absolutely atrocious. Leo D had to not only deal with his wife and 2 of his daughters being murdered, he then was harmed even more by the headlines that were about how they were killed in the West Bank or criticizing him for living in the West Bank rather than putting in the headline that they were murdered by terrorists. Well, now the media has no excuse anymore. Hamas claimed responsibility for the people who were assassinated today by the IDF. They were proud members of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization recognized around the world. There's really no excuse anymore for the international media, and yet still they're being hesitant. They're calling them all kinds of euphemisms, and the people shouldn't tolerate this.
Gil, thank you so much for being with us today.